Hey, thank you all for joining me. This is our panel for PAX Online, which is Let Me Give You My Game, a panel for content creators by professionals with advice about things that would help our relationships work better. And why don't we do a round intros since not everyone knows who everyone is. Why don't you start us off, Victoria?
Sure. Hello, I'm Victoria Tran. I'm the communications director at Kitfox Games. We're a little indie studio in Montreal, Canada. We're making games like Boyfriend Dungeon and Lucifer Within Us, and also publishing games like Dwarf Fortress and Mondo Museum. And then beside me is Maggie.
Hi, I'm Margaret Krohn. You can find me at Margaret Krohn in all the places. I currently work at Intrepid Studios. Well, I can't talk. It's morning. I haven't talked to people. It's because we were remote. I'm the community and marketing lead at Intrepid Studios, where we are currently creating Ashes of Creation. I've been in the industry for 13, 14 years. So I've been around. I can talk about things. And what about Kristi?
I'm Kristi Anderson. I work at Leviathan Core. We do influencer marketing relationships with brands big and small, from indie to AAA. Basically, I'm the person emailing you trying to give you my game. Joe, sorry, I totally dropped the ball.
You're fine. I'm ready. Hi, I'm Joe. I am the community and comms and marketing lead for Systemair Softworks. We make the game Astroneer. I'm also a co-founder of Latinx in Games, which is a cool group that works in the gaming space to promote ideas and programs for Latinx people in the industry. And I also used to work in gaming press, so I kind of have like both sides of this argument of like, hey, used to want these things, and now I know how to give these things out. So that's where my qualifications are. But okay, Hunter, it's your turn.
Oh, all right. Hi, so I'm Hunter Bond. I'm the marketing dude for Berzerk Studio, which is a small indie studio based out of Quebec City, Canada. I actually am from California, but I run all of the PR, marketing, influence. We're a small shop, so I do all of that stuff for us. But my background is I used to work for Jinx, the clothing company, back in the day, and I like soloed their community back when we didn't really even have a name for the job. So I've been doing
that's where I met you.
It is, yeah, because
that
you
was
were
like
at SOE.
10
Mm-hmm.
Or no, that had to be like 14 years ago.
I think it was like closer to 10 because you were transitioning out of SOE.
I've known you for a long time. That's all. It's just nuts.
So yeah, I used to do it there. So I've been doing this a long time. So I've also had to do relations with physical goods, which is a little different than games. So I'll probably mention some of that stuff too, because you see a lot of people looking for physical sponsorships from places, and there are a lot of concerns that like might not come up for influencers that I might want to bring up. But thanks again, everybody, for being here. This is really awesome. Why don't we? So we have like a small list of stuff. Why don't we just kick it off with maybe the first thing from maybe Victoria? Do you want to go with the first one on your list, and then we'll just all kind of start round robin it?
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah, so one of the, I think, first things I wanted to chat about was the fact that I think a lot of people don't understand that we all talk to each other. Clearly, we're on this panel together.
Yeah.
But also, it's like, it's not like a we're not like in the like competition of like, oh my God, no, like if I'm talking to this streamer, like I'm not going to tell anyone else because then that's a competition, and I don't want to share my knowledge because then that they'll like know how to do this. So I find that a lot of people don't know that we do talk to each other, and we tell each other like, oh, when an influencer, when a streamer does something maybe not great, like breaks an embargo or insults the studio, insults us, and just all of that. So I guess I would love to like kind of dive into what are some of the bad actions you've seen, and also kind of like things that you've heard around the industry.
Anybody
want?
want?
List.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we were all like, which one do we choose?
I mean, embargo breaking is huge, right? You see that with influencers who are like trying to gain the edge because of time, and like they don't realize that once you burn that bridge with me, you're done. But maybe with everyone I know too. Like,
yeah, I think anytime you have a contract that's involved with anything, like being very clear about deadlines, about when things should be released is very important. I mean, obviously that is, if you break any of those things, that's going to reflect on your work in the future. So that's potentially like that company's not going to work with you again, right? And then beyond that, like V was saying, we all talk to each other. We all do, like, we can take like 2 seconds of Google searching and also to see like what things you've done in the past. So it's not like those things are hidden or that you're not going to be found out for doing those things.
There's also communities entirely full of community managers who just talk to each other. You know, there are discords where we all can talk to each other very easily.
Facebook groups, discords, like, yeah, we all chat with each other. It's not I think that was a really key thing what V said too, is that, you know, even we think about things as competition, and sure, like there's friendly competition within our industry, but at the same time, it's like we're all part of the same industry and we're all trying to do the best thing that we can and move forward. And I think as an industry, I think content creation and influencer management is something that's really new. I think within the last like 10 years, yes, people have been creating content for a really long time, but now it's become like this booming industry where, you know, you have influence over a lot of people and that brands want to work with you. Whereas before it was like you're a sellout, right? And I think people are more understanding that you need to make money for your work, but at the same time, like we need to be getting what we need out of it in order for this to be a symbiotic relationship.
Well, Kristi also has probably the one of the more unique like positions out of all of us, because now you're working more directly in like a contract basis, like with money involved for like promotion and stuff, right?
Yeah, so at Leviathan Core, most of the time, if not all of the time, we won't even talk to you about the activation details until you sign an MNDA with us. And the most recent example of that is this week launching Spiritfarer. That was a shadow launch, so it was incredibly important that we had to have those people like sign the MNDA. I had a few people who turned me down because they, I guess, were unfamiliar with the process or having to have that kind of information be passed through us. But yeah, we deal directly with the influencers. The brands, we make all the proposals for them and they're like, yes, we can do that with those people for that amount of cost. And then we just go with it and hope that it works.
I appreciate your company and companies of that realm, because
Yes.
obviously, like, as you like, especially for teams that are smaller, working with those external teams really helps, because we don't have time to manage like all of those things, or if you can't have somebody in-house doing that, and believe me, I've tried to do those things in-house, it's not easy. You can do it, it's just having a person or a team doing that is gonna just provide higher quality work for sure.
Do you have anything on this one, Joe?
Margaret mentioned something, which I think this is like my top thing, just based on what I used to do, which is like understanding what you have to offer to someone, like, and being able to concisely like put that together. I think that's like super important. And you know, I got pretty good at putting that little pitch together for whatever publication I was writing for or whatever videos I was trying to make, and just like putting that to someone's head and then letting them kind of like be excited about it. But as far as bad things, yeah, I don't know. That list is kind of
That
long.
list goes so long. Yeah,
It does go very long.
Just don't do anything that would lose you friends or, you know, contracts. Right? Is a real good, like, the biggest problem with influencers is, since it's new, like you were saying, Margaret, like influencer management right now is like the position that community management was in like 10 years ago, where like when I started in that, nobody really knew, like it was new and stuff. Now it's pretty well worn, like people know about the rules. And now the Wild West is influencer management. So like everyone's writing the rules as they go, and like you can't directly relate them to anything that you've done before necessarily. Like
Yeah,
I've had a lot of, oh, good.
The list that I have here is already like a lot of things, but I mean, we can go into further detail
yeah,
about
for
these.
sure.
Like I had contact info and being
Yeah,
very clear
I was
about
gonna
where
say.
we can contact
yes,
you,
we can
being
go
responsive
all
to
into
emails, you know,
Yes.
content etiquette, which is
Why
like,
don't you
you know,
kick that off?
don't put our stuff with their stuff and then tweet at us both, because it's like, no, dude, I don't want to retweet someone else's brand. I want to retweet my brand and share my brand. And then, you know, like just being nice to people, like it's just like a whole other realm of things. But we can talk about those things in detail.
Yeah, well, why don't we go into
it's hard to say like what
info?
not to do versus what to do, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I think the content info one, or contact info one, is one that everyone is expecting us. I think we almost named this one "Put your email in your bio." So you want to do that one, Margaret?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's like, no matter what your content is, so if whether you're like an Instagram, you know, person and all you do is post Instagram content, if you're just somebody who, you know, maybe Twitter's like your thing and that's all that it is, or maybe you are a YouTube content creator or a Twitch content creator, whatever it might be, whatever content you're creating, make it very clear and easy for people to find a way to contact you. I know that sometimes it can be hard because you don't want like your fans to contact you. I think making it very clear that this is my business contact, business emails only. And, you know, if folks message you for other reasons, you can just drop those into your junk or trash mail, right? Like it's clear that you're not going to get an answer to those type of personal questions from fans. Like fans should be aware of that. But when it comes to business, if that contact information is available, you're going to get a lot more deals. Whether you're big or small, it doesn't matter what size you are, you should be having that available to folks.
Although
and
that
then
goes to number 3, right?
Being responsive with that. Yeah. Like if you have a contact information, if you have like an email or a form on your website, please check it. Whether that's once a week, I would hope that you would do it daily if you're like a content creator. Yeah, if you're a content creator,
Right.
I think make it part of your routine. I think one of the first things I do every morning is I make my coffee, I open my email, I try to go through my email. And when I wrap up the end of the day, I double check again my email, making sure that like, you know, if you can't check it every second, it's okay. We understand people are busy, but if you want to make sure that you're getting deals and that you're getting communication properly, please.
Especially
do
last
so.
minute stuff that might pop up too, right? Like being someone who's able to do an activation on a short timeline puts you in a very short list of people if you're good at all the other stuff. If you can do all the professionalism and you also can like in 3 days, 2 days, like be on something, that's a very short list of people that companies would trust. I mean, is that true for you, Kristi?
Oh, yes. So I'm sure everyone has seen my tirades on Twitter recently on this panel, but I had a very short deadline for the activation through no fault of the company at all. It was tech issues that happened. So short deadline, and I'm being upfront right away with everyone, like, hey, I'm outreaching. I have super short deadline. As soon as you tell me you're interested, I'm sending them NDA, and then you get the activation details. And if you don't respond by this date, I'm going to have to move on. And so it got pretty crazy for a second. So I started tweeting like each 24 hours that passes, if you don't respond, I will email 2 other people, because it was very important. And this company, you know, indie companies in general, I have super bleeding heart syndrome for them. I'm going to go out of my way because, you know, they need people to stand up for them. So I'm going out of my way, tweeting at people without their emails in their bios or anywhere. And please don't just count YouTube, because we can only open 5 emails at a time on YouTube one day. But I tweeted these people, they sent me their emails back in DMs and then never checked their email. I'm not, like if a brand, I don't know. If somebody asks you for your email, whether you know where that person works or not, you should be checking it. And you should be checking it in general. You're a professional. You're wanting to make money doing this. So it's time to go from just the streamer mindset to the professional mindset. And like, I feel like I can extra speak on that because I was a streamer before I went into this side of the industry. And that fast turnaround time, I mean, I had companies before be like, hey, I want to fly you to Germany, but you need to respond to me in 2 days. And I hope to God you have a passport because we're flying you out next week. Like,
Right.
That's obviously you can't do that every time. You know, people have other jobs, but like that company came back and worked with me over and over again because I responded to them, I think like within a few hours. So
yeah, and then it's
we
not
make
only that,
notes.
it's once you respond the first time, you need to be like consistent. So as soon as you get the email that's like, here's my NDA or NDA, and honestly, I think I get this a lot too, Kristi, is where like I'll ask somebody to sign an NDA, they're like, why? And they're like, really? It's not a new thing, folks.
Right.
NDAs are very important to companies. Like, we don't want to work with you unless you sign one, because we are trying to like create campaigns that no one is supposed to know about until we launch them. And if you want to be part of that, which is a big thing for you, because being able to have that information right away as something launches is going to be extreme. That's one of like the quickest ways to get your content to go viral, is being one of the first people to have content.
That seems like one of the things in general with people who haven't made that jump, like Kristi's talking about, from the like entry level to professional, which is, I have had friends had me sign NDAs just to talk about their game, right? That's a totally fine. Where I
We've
was
joked
like,
about that in this group.
of course, yeah,
Yeah.
that we should, and it like that's a normal thing, right? I offer to friends when they want to tell me about their game, where I was like, hey, do you want me to? And like most of the time they say no, but like it's a nice thing to be able to offer that you're like, this is a good faith, right? There, legally you can enforce them, sure, but it's more of a good faith agreement before legal that I'm aware of the fact that I'm not supposed to share this. It's just a professional courtesy at that point. Like it's one of the get in there things.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that a lot of people forget that, and I get it, like games are fun, they're exciting, like you're young, it's a young industry, whatever. And you know, we love making jokes, like we'll make jokes anywhere, like you see us interacting with our friends, and like we, like personally as like a very small indie company, like I'm not, like, just to push back on some of the things, it's like we don't necessarily make people sign an NDA. We're just like, hey, here's info, please don't talk about it now. That doesn't mean you shouldn't follow it just because we don't make you sign an NDA, because that's a whole other thing. But there is like a level of like a little bit of like casualness to it. But that being said, it's still a professional thing. You are still in a profession, and I want to see that, oh, sorry about the background noise. I still want to see the professionalism in you, and to be able to work with you and trust you before I can get to the casual, like, hey, I don't really care, like you don't have to sign an NDA, I'm just going to tell you what this is. Right. So yeah, and like being treated with that kind of respect, I think just goes a long way. I would rather someone be more professional with me than way too casual, because then that rubs off the wrong way, right? And could go totally wrong. And I understand.
It can get creepy. People are creepy
sometimes.
So
creepy.
Please do not call me honey, darling,
don't do that,
sweetie.
Yeah.
No.
I understand, like people.
Babe,
like,
I get babe sometimes,
like,
and I'm like, whoa,
no,
you're not on that level, buddy.
I know, no. I get it. They want to be like, oh, but I have to show my personality, and I'm like, no. Like, first and foremost, you need to be professional. I need you to know you can actually market. You aren't technically part of the marketing sphere. It's like you're going to market my game well. I don't know if you have like a similar thing, Joe, because I know you're also like indie and you send out all the keys.
Yeah, I mean, we're sort of similar because now we're like live service status where we're just like doing updates in live, and so I'm less worried about things being leaked. But I also have very specific groups that I send stuff out to for people to play early. So like I'll give out details and be like, hey, check out the stuff, and like I'm showing all that stuff early. But like actually giving out builds is where I like cross, you know, where that line crosses into more like NDA status. So I deal less with it now, but I think you kind of like covered this part of it, but I think there's a level of professionalism, and I don't deal with a lot with people calling me babe in emails, which you know is but one thing that is good and it sort of plays into this is this idea that like people are kind of like wasting your time, you know, like there's like I'm like emailing a lot of people right now, you know, and if you're like sending me unnecessary cycles where you're questioning the NDA, or you're like, you didn't read the email and you ask a question of me that is like literally right in there, I just,
oh my God,
you're just like wasting, you know, like, and I think about that and I'm like, well, I can't do this with this person, because like now I'm going to send 15 emails back and forth to just like clarify things.
That gives you a good tip how the working relationship will go too. I think a lot of people don't think about that too, with the whole like you calling somebody babe or like sending back weird clarification emails. It's like, you're telling me a lot about what I need to know about what our long-term working relationship would look like. So I'm just going to go ahead and nip this in the bud. Like, no thanks.
The worst is like when you send them, like I usually try to keep it really simple because I know people don't answer or like don't read. So I'm like one sentence about like what I'm wanting and when it's due. And then like maybe 2 or 3 bulletins, and they're short, and it's like just the information they need. And I still get people who reply like, when does this start? When do I need to have this to you by? What is this information? It's like, that's literally the only 3 sentences. There's only 1 sentence in my email to you with 2 bulletins. Like how
you have to make a couple of them red and larger sized and like marquee text
italic.
Flashing.
I usually always highlight and bold dates because people don't read.
It's so funny. But you know, one of the things it came up a few times, and it's a one that's good, is keys. Who wants to talk about dealing with people and expectations about keys? That's fun.
Literally 90% of my messages are like, keys, can I have an alpha key? Can I have a beta key? Can I have a key? Can I have a key? What do I need to do? I will give you my baby for a key. I'm like, whoa.
I have so many thoughts on keys.
Yeah, I figured it was yours. You want to kick it off?
Oh, was it mine?
Yeah.
Sure. I get, okay, so like, again, I know there's like do's and don'ts, and it's easier to say what not to do. It's easier what to say, not as easy to say what to do. But I'll say like one of my nots, especially when you are messaging a company that has more than 1 game, please specify what game you want. If you just tell me you want a game key, and I'm like, well, we don't technically right now have Boyfriend Dungeon, like we have Moon Hunters, we have Shrouded Isle, we have Fit for a King, we have Dwarf Fortress, we have Mondo Museum, we have Lucifer Within Us. Which of the 7 do you want? I'm not going to take the time to reply to you and be like, hey, what key do you want? And also, if you have an email, and I get like that isn't personal, like isn't the custom email, like it goes like something at gmail.com, something at hotmail.com, and not like something at kitfoxgames.com, then I need you to somehow verify that this email is yours.
Yep.
We get so many fake emails, so many people trying to get like free keys from us, and I need you to know that keys are worth something. They are worth money. They are not just something that we just can give out. Even though it feels like we have thousands of keys, we cannot just give out millions of keys. Just
Platform
because.
dependency too is a huge thing. I think
so
people were
much
talking
platform
about it on
dependency.
Twitter, but it's a good thing to note that there's a hierarchy of key like requests where if you ask me for a Steam key, probably sure, right? As long as you exist and are going to use it. And then like, you know, PS4 is like a little harder, like not as, but harder. Xbox is pretty easy. And then at the very bottom is Switch, which is like, if I wanted to give my friend a key right now, I'd have to buy it for them because I don't have any more Switch keys right now. That's how rare they are.
I think it's like, it's hard to explain because we're like also bound by like legal things we can and cannot say about certain keys and certain platforms, right? So like understand that sometimes like we do want to give you a key, but like we cannot for reasons we cannot tell you. And it's great when you're understanding about that, and even better if you don't want the key to give it back to us. We won't be offended if you're like, hey, like I thought I could play this, or like I'm not actually that interested, like here's the key back. Then we can just give it to someone else, and it's actually amazing when you do that. But I think one of the biggest questions, and I will open up to everyone else so I'm not like taking up the entire talk about this. I get this question a lot from streamers. It's like, all right, so what if you're a smaller streamer, like you don't have millions of followers? Like, how do I approach a company to get a key then? I'll pitch this to everyone because this is a question I've gotten a lot, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. But
I guess I'll follow up on the thing I mentioned earlier, which is kind of out of turn, which is like this idea of letting people know what you can offer, like, right? So this is supposed to be like an exchange of, hey, I give you the thing, I maybe give you some exclusivity that helps you on your platforms that's like valuable to you. And then what's valuable to me is like you playing it. And like, maybe even if you don't do coverage, you're giving me feedback, or you're like, you're giving me something there. And so like making that thing clear up front is super helpful. Like when people email me like professionally and they only have like, you know, 100 followers or something, but they're like, hey, here's what I do. I'm super into space. I'm super into spaceships. I used to do this. And like, all right, cool. I'm into that. Like, I know that you're going to spend time to make good content, and I'm actually like excited about that. What I can't get excited behind is just like, I have 1 million followers, but like, I don't actually like make content in your space. I just like want a key
or I don't have any engagement. Like my follower numbers are super high and my tweets get 10 likes. Like
very suspicious.
You just, I had this, I dealt with this all week long. It's like, I don't care about your follower count on any platform. I care about your engagement, and I care about, you know, perhaps if we have to put words on it, like average concurrence, your unique view count. When I was a smaller streamer, I never told people my average concurrence. I'm like, you know what? I got 800 unique viewers last night. Like, cause that's 800 eyeballs. It's not about, like, you have to think of it as you're advertising this game, you know? So don't think about how many people are sticking around and watching it a ton. Because honestly, like if it's a story game, maybe I don't want people to watch it a ton. I want them to play it themselves instead, because if it's a one and done.
Yeah.
But like this whole thing of like, I'm a small streamer, like never lead with that. I can already tell because I'm looking at your analytics. So that's fine. You know, it's not a bad thing. We all started at 0. But just like have some serious confidence in yourself when you're requesting these things. And then my one snippet, which is a little bit off topic, is please don't tweet multiple times at the company asking for keys, because like not every time, but this time I was very adamant that I was doing everything for the campaign by myself. So it's just me approving hundreds of keys. And especially when those tweets start coming at like 2 and 3 hour intervals, like.
Are you saying you don't want all of their followers to also tweet on their behalf at you for the keys? Is that not?
Please stop. Like those, you know, that poor company wasn't even involved in the key campaign. Right. Like I felt really bad. I'm like, I'm so sorry that all these mentions are coming to you, but like, you have to give us time. We're just humans, and I do vet check everyone. I'm not going to look at your follower count or your view count and just be like, yeah, this is perfect.
To look at your
Like,
content.
Yeah.
Right. If you're only playing Fortnite, I'm not going to give you a key for Spiritfarer where you're hugging,
What?
and wholesome, and it's like that's not what your community wants. And that might be what your girlfriend wants. Like, I'm not really sure what you're asking for a key for now.
Yeah.
So
I see that a lot too. Like when you go through like the media list for events and stuff, right? Like I know people who like from our, because I'm the one who does our press releases too, will just blast everybody. And like I basically will go through and I'll be like, oh, these are, single game players, right? Like they play Fortnite or they play Just WoW. And like generally I drop them off the list, not because I don't care about them, but because I'm like, this is game, like we're making a 2D side-scrolling platformer inspired by Zelda 2. This is for a very specific group of people, and I want just those people to get the email because they're going to like it a lot. And like maybe the other people might, but like they're going to get a million emails during PAX that are probably more relevant than my game. So I'm not going to like shotgun blast them. And it's like the same thing with view counts, like you were saying. For me, when I see somebody, I would rather give my keys and stuff to 50 tiny streamers who have like 20 concurrent viewers who actually deeply care about the weird subgenre I'm making, where like, yeah, all you do is stream like Zelda speedruns. Like you can have, like you can go, I want you're the one. I've been waiting for you. Versus like, the guy who has 1,000 concurrent viewers and all he plays is like, he cycles through AAA games, or she's like somebody who focuses on like something that is not in any way relevant, right? Like you might get a key eventually, but like you're not a top tier for me. Like the resurgence of micro influencers is cool, but it should have always been there because someone with a small community that trusts them is going to move more copies of the game, because it's like the difference between like the guy at the game store you don't know recommending something where you're like, maybe he knows, and like your best friend being like, I know all the games that you love, you would love this game. That's the kind of word of mouth you can't even buy. Like,
I think it
Yeah.
depends on the campaign that you're running too, because sometimes you are trying to market to a different audience because you're trying to like extend and acquire new acquisitions from a different genre. So I think there can be overlap there. And obviously I think it goes into kind of like what you guys were saying, which is like really selling what you're providing. Like, let's say you are a League of Legends streamer and like that's all you stream, but during those break times while you're waiting for content, you do play these like smaller like side games. Maybe that's the way to sell it to us, like, right? Because we're gonna watch some of your content, but we're not gonna be able to watch every hour of your content. So we might not see like, oh, you have this little bit of time that you're doing these things, and that's when you are talking about playing our product. Like just telling us the story of like why you're selling yourself, I think is very important, because that can like change the perspective of like what we see when we look at your content and like how we're feeling about it. I'm just playing devil's advocate on that
No,
front,
that's
because I
super
do
good,
think there
yeah.
is value in like large streamers who have lots of
Of course.
following, for sure. But keeping that in mind, like 1% of your following is actually going to be interacting with your stuff. So it's like, no matter how big you are, that, that amount of people that are interacting with things is not always very big, unless you have like a very interactive community, which is more rare.
I think a lot of streamers think numbers, right? Like numbers. A lot of influencers and streamers think numbers only. And like I can say, as a professional on the back end who's seen the results numbers of like, say, paid campaigns with huge influencers.
Well, it is still numbers. It's just numbers of people who are actually actively interacting.
Of
like
course,
engagement.
yeah.
Engagement is very important.
Exactly. Like what's the follow through from somebody who goes and sees Markiplier, for instance, maybe stream a game? It might not be as high as you think because they're there for him. They're there for watching the content.
And when he switches to another game, they're not going to keep playing our game.
Right. So that's something a lot of people don't consider, that like a lot of us would actually consider you, generally speaking, like if you are relevant, just not because you're huge. Yeah. Yeah, that was like my one thing, and you guys all said it, which was just be honest. Like that was my one. You guys had long lists, and mine was like, don't lie to me. Just tell me how big you are and what you like.
Also, you can't lie to me because I'm going to look at your stuff. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you tell me the wrong number, I'm going to look at your stuff and be like, that's not the number.
Yeah.
And also, I think Joe kind of covered the value part of that, and knowing your value. Sometimes people ask for way more than like their value. And I'm always like, that's okay. But like being able to negotiate and not get sassy with me when I'm like, hey, I understand you want this much money. But when I look at the CPV and the click-through rate on all of your content, this is the kind of value that I see you at. You're at more 5 cents than like a 10-cent per view option. Like the lifetime value of the people that are clicking through your content is not valuable to me, or not as valuable. as you think it is. So, and just being able to negotiate and not be like sassy with me about
Taking
it.
that as a business statement, not a personal
Yeah.
attack. Yeah. Is a
Yeah,
huge.
I'm not trying to attack you. I want to work with you, but I also have people I have to adhere to when it comes to budget. So I can't just be like spending my budget on you just because like we're friends or, you know, like you want me to like you. I can't.
You snuck
It's
into the
not-
last one on your list, which was be kind and respectful, right? That was.
I think that's
was-
just overarching.
Yeah.
Thing. Be respectful to people. Like you never know. Like someday down the line, you might be working at one of these companies or working with one of these people. You know, you just don't know.
And even if you don't, we talk to each other. Bringing it back. You got Joe. Did you have like because you're doing the only I think game as service really right out of all of us right now? Like because
I have before, but not
right.
currently.
Yeah. I know you're but I guess the two of you might have insight. Is there anything that's like kind of unique to the way that you interact with influencers that would be good for them to know?
I think the biggest thing is like when it comes to relationship building, I'm super focused on that. Like I'm trying to create connections with people that like make it easier for us to work together over time. And so like there are people when I first joined the company, there was like a sort of group of people that they had been working with, and I kind of like institutionalized that and said like, hey, this is like an actual, you know, extension of like our influencers that are people that like get to play stuff early or get to like try stuff out or get to like give us feedback on things, because we were also early access when I joined, so we were like doing that. And so I like assembled this group of people who didn't even necessarily have huge followings, who were just like, hey, like I want to play the things and I'm dedicated to the game and or this genre or whatever. And I was focused on just like making sure that I could do that reliably over time, which was kind of fun. Just because like, yeah, I want to make that easy for myself, honestly, like selfishly. It's just like, hey, I can just like send these people to the thing. They know how to do it. They know how to make it. And like the specific thing that maybe ties back to what we were just talking about is like a lot of people in that group weren't like humongous influencers. They were just people who were like, I found to be easy to work with and also who made great content. And like subsequently, I also then tried to like promote those people's content, right? Like I know that they're making really cool stuff. I know that they're dedicated to the game and they really like it. And so like when I'm tweeting about, you know, when I'm looking at the list of people who are like playing the game and tweeting about it, I'm going to prefer the person that like I have a working relationship with in there. And that actually creates a really nice opportunity for you as a creator to like get your name out there more. And so like there is a sort of curating / like relationship building part that like doesn't necessarily happen all the time, but I think with live service games, the reason I'm like into this is because I used to do this on the media side, where it's like you have this relationship with this person at a PR company, you're always talking to them, it's super easy, and then like you get that access first. Like if it's easy for me, damn, I'm like gonna email you right away and just get you the thing, and then I can keep going on my day. So yeah, that's like sort of our strategy. But and just to go back to that earlier point, yeah, like it's not only focused on the biggest people. Like I'd much rather focus on awesome content, dedicated fan bases, and that just helps me like make better decisions on my end. So
I'm with Joe 100%. We can also help make you become that next big streamer. I have worked with so many people and previous companies that I've worked for I actually have worked with Tran with some projects that are like huge games that produce like some content creators who are massive now. Like they're just huge and they're playing other games, not any products that I have worked on anymore, but like they started playing one of those games like H1Z1 or PlanetSide 2 or, you know, EverQuest or whatever that might have been. Like they started there and then they like moved forward into like these much bigger genres or like much bigger content creators. So if you're willing to listen, like we can also give you advice like, hey, you know, maybe like change up your assets, like make sure you're putting this type of thing, make sure when you're tweeting you provide the link to where people should see the content, because sometimes people are like, I'm live, and it's like, great dude, where you know, like I think a lot of those things are just stuff like you learn over time. But as a smaller streamer, I find that like those folks are the ones who, if they take the advice really quickly and they work with you really well, you're going to keep promoting their content. They're going to keep growing. And like you could be that next big streamer out there or the next big YouTube content creator or whatever it may be.
I think we're talking about one of the same people, if I know who you're talking about. But like a thing I always remember is like, so I've met some people like who worked with games they used to work with, right? And they're now huge. But one of the nice things is that the entire time I've known them, we haven't really had a whole lot of back and forth professionally, like I haven't had a lot of opportunities to offer, but knowing that they're like a nice person who's like amicable and easy to work with has led to me recommending a lot of other people to work with them. Like, oh, you should work with this person because talking to them is not painful and they're professional and they do what they say they'll do. And even as they grew to a much larger streamer, that stayed the same. And that's like the hugest thing is as you grow, if you continue to be, amicable, I understand that like the practicalities change when you become bigger, but if you still are a like human and are essentially a cool person to interact with, that's huge. It's so like, it's such a tiring job sometimes just because of having to deal with differing personalities. And it only tends to get tougher as the scope of like reach gets bigger sometimes, which is unfortunate. Like,
Yeah, and I think whenever you have a when you have live content, it's a little bit different. A lot of times you want to create a program, like a content creator program or influencer program or whatever that might be, your affiliation program. When you're thinking about those programs, keeping in mind people who are not maybe like big streamers, right? Like you want to have kind of like, I almost say like a tiered approach to it because yeah, obviously when you're a smaller streamer, you don't need as many codes to give away to your viewers, right? And when you're a larger streamer, you need more codes. Totally understandable, but I wouldn't say like, you have to have this amount or you're never going to get anything. Like, I think I worry about companies that do that because you're really honestly, like, I think everyone here has basically said this, small streamers often have the most interaction with their engagement with their community. And that's the stuff that you want. That's the people that you want. So I think just making sure like as companies that we're also incorporating those opportunities for people. And then on the other end, you as the influencer need to make sure that you're adhering to like putting in the effort that it takes because it's not just going to magically happen. Like you actually have to put in effort and care about the content that you're creating. And then like what Joe said is like, if we see that you care, like you're constantly making great content and maybe you're not getting tons of viewership, but like, we're like, hey, this video is amazing. Let us promote it because it really explains like the system very well. And we share it, multiple times throughout a month, right? Like that's massive for you. Or we email you and we're like, hey, we want to do a spotlight on your content because we think this is a great piece. Like those are all things that you can do on the community retention side that can help those creators. And also as a creator, being responsive, responding to that email so that we can help promote you. Like it's just like this back and forth that, like I said before, a symbiotic relationship. We both have to care about it. And we both have to like nurture it. Otherwise, something will die.
Is there anything special from like the influencer relations and Kristi about like this sort of stuff? Like something I think comes up a lot and doesn't get addressed is like the personal brand versus the streaming brand and your viability as someone that a company can like even choose to work with. I bet that affects you probably even more than us.
It does. For this last campaign, I was going through my first outreach net, sorting through people, and I just happened, very unlucky for that person, but very lucky for me, as I was clicking through one of their bots, a bit donation went off, and the sound for it I will not repeat on this panel, but it was not even towing the line of appropriate for a game like, a wholesome game. So like, you really have to understand that. I know the whole don't judge a book by its cover, but that's what I'm doing. Like, I'm sorry. I can't help it. Like, if I'm sorting through 90,000 streamers, right, I can do a lot. Let's say I take it down to like 500 automatically with algorithms or whatever. But then, like, once I'm getting lower and lower, like, I'm going to have to start clicking through these profiles and, like, I'm sorry that I clicked on the one spot where that was atrocious. But immediately, like, you're removed because now you're like, the brand doesn't mix. Maybe if I had a game where it did, like, I don't know, I'm not even going to name games, but if I had a game that matched that, then it's okay. But if you can't separate like what your brand is, and this kind of relates back to perhaps my old streaming username where a brand was like, I won't lie to you. It is very hard in the meetings to say your name. It used to be Unholy Temptress, for those who don't know. It is now Cinder and Cinder Slays. Like that, they were upfront with me. They were like, this brand that you've got going on is not working with our brand that we've got going on. And so you really have to think long-term with that. Like even your email address. I'm like really not trying to send emails to like XX36420 Blaze It YOLO No Scope 7. Like I really don't want to. So just be thinking about those things, because unfortunately you are presenting yourself like a book and hoping that we pick you off the shelf and we're like, yes, we want to like work with you or give you this paid opportunity.
Part of it's like a threshold thing though too, right? Where like I think a lot of people don't realize that you can do things that in and of themselves, each one of them is not that big a deal, but there's like a point where you've hit enough small things that concern me or anybody who's like looking, that it's like, I think I'm just going to move on, because you've like you said, like that sound was enough. That sounds like a high tier one. But if you like look through somebody's tweets and you're like, wow, you know, they generally just have a lot of hot takes, just a lot of them. I don't know if I, you know, want them to stream my game, because what if they have a bad time and they decided I'm the target now. Like if your general way of like communicating with your fans and your community is to be
Hopefully
saucy
you have a discrimination clause in your contract, just saying.
Oh, for sure.
I think most of us probably are smart about that. Usually during your contract phase, you are not allowed to talk smack about the company, usually.
There's a way to give feedback and be polite about games.
Constructive feedback, for sure.
You can say this game's not for me, because every game's not for everyone. You can say which points of it were not for you. You can say, you know, perhaps there were, you know, it's just not a stable build right now. I would love to come back to it later. Or like, it's not a stable build and I don't want to come back to it later. But in general, just be polite about it. Don't be like this, just like throw your keyboard like this trash game, like trash company. Don't blame the QA. Gosh, poor QA. Like,
yeah, poor QA. Just a moment of silence for QA.
They're just trying to do the best with the resources they have.
So tough.
Be polite. Kind.
I saw one in your list, Victoria, that's probably everyone has some interesting thoughts on, which is you get the question all the time on streamer panels, like how can small streamers make their pitch more appealing? Is like some good actionable items that I think everybody knows. Do you want to start that one, or?
I mean, we already kind of
talked about
it now, about giving it, like, especially what Jay said about knowing your value and stuff.
Just want to make sure we hit that one, because I think the you know, at least a decent amount of the people watching will probably be interested in knowing if there's any like actionable stuff, and I think all of it is, right? Just making sure. What about?
I do want to say, please listen to your VOD and do your best with your audio.
Audio's
we're
really
not
important.
We're not asking for, you know, the best sound setup known to man, but you would be surprised, and I'm only saying this because I streamed for like 3 freaking years without listening to it, and my microphone was peaking so much. Just listen. I know it sucks to have to listen to your own voice, but just do it every now and then.
There's some real simple stuff too, right? Like don't speak into the top of a Blue Yeti. That's not how those work. Speak into the side with the logo on it. That's how that mic is designed. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, like do some real rudimentary stuff to try and keep your stream level at a, like, as you grow too, right? That it depends. If you're small and your quality is not as good, but it doesn't sound like there's a fan right out of camera, that's cool. But like scope up, right? As you go, and invest in your stream, because we're looking at you as an ambassador, and your poorly produced stream can reflect poorly on a game. Like you might get just edged out of a promotion by not being produced well enough by yourself.
I've sent like microphones. I've sent things to people so that they can better their quality, because like the content of their quality, or the content of their content, I guess, like the solidity, like what they create is good, right? But like maybe the audio quality is just like the one thing that is not good. And I have sent people microphones to be like, hey, love what you're doing, use this microphone. Like there's often times where like if you're working with a brand and you solidify like a really good relationship, they'll do things like that for you.
It's worth the money. It's not that expensive to send someone, like even a Blue Snowball is a decent enough mic used well. And we're talking what, $80 for one of those, like where it's a no-brainer. Also, audio over video. I don't know if everyone agrees with that, but I can deal with like a okay camera, like just a Logitech, whatever. You don't need like a crazy Canon, you know, you don't have to have a 4K stream. But if your audio is bad, it doesn't matter how good your video is. I'm going to be so sad because it's just jarring.
For sure.
I'm using a C920 right now.
Me too.
All you need is lights. And not fancy lights. You don't need expensive lights.
They're right out of frame. There's some tracing paper over some LEDs. Like, yeah, you can get away with stuff.
Yeah, no, I think one of the, like, this isn't related to video or audio quality at all, but I think one of the things that I just remembered that bothers me sometimes when I receive emails from streamers wanting keys and stuff, it's like, I understand that you want keys for a giveaway or keys to play the game because like it will boost your brand. Like I understand, like obviously you want this, but it's like make it sound like you are talking to me for more than just a free game. Like it's so many times I think we get emails where it's like, why do you want this? Is it just because you don't want to pay, especially for indies? Like, do you not want to pay $15 for my game? Like, it's
we use
like,
that for our rent. It's important for us. That's how we eat. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. It's just like, and because like we can't afford contract deals. We can't afford to sponsor someone, and so like being able, I think, to again pitch your value and tell us why this game is important to you or why you love this game or why you like the company is just like, oh, okay, so you don't just want like 10 keys for a giveaway for a stream that has like 10 viewers. Like it's one of those things.
Does anyone run into seeing people whose whole brand is built around giveaways? I've seen a lot of that.
There's somebody that should be on all of our lists. There's someone whose name floats around like every 3 months. Their entire Twitter brand is giving away keys for things. And they're like, look at my 300,000 followers. And I'm like, of key giveaways.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Margaret? Sorry.
I was going to say along the lines of like when you're messaging people, don't just send me like a paragraph. Like I get blocks of text sometimes where I'm like, oh my God, like there's no periods. It's just like a block of text. It's so hard to read. I'm like, I don't need to know your whole life story either. Like that's a lot. I've had to read like almost a like whole entire like cover letter from somebody, but it wasn't like in paragraphs. It was just like, it's just giant forms of text. Like I think being professional, I guess, is what I'm trying to go for in the way that you write things to people too. And I know not everybody is on that same level in regards to like grammar and stuff like that, but at the same time, like put some effort into it because
you'll run into streamers for whom English isn't their first language either, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's not something to judge when
but you can still use paragraphs.
Of course, yeah. I just mean when you
English is not my first language.
Okay.
It is like my fourth language. So like I think you can, if you put in the effort and time, do it. It's just it's a lot, and sometimes it's again, it can be like a small streamer or a big streamer. It doesn't matter. Like sometimes it's just a lot to read whenever it's like just a giant paragraph.
You do run into people for whom English is their first language who don't put in that effort to hit that minimum amount of like, you're like, you want me to go through the motions of giving you stuff and promoting you. Could you possibly spell check? Just throwing it out there. Like there's a red line. We've got this. We're like, please show me a tiny bit of respect.
It kind of does that for you.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. There's something to be said though, like about backgrounds, and I know I deal with a lot with this with like Latinx and gaming, where we talk a lot about like your value can also be what other audiences you reach. And so like we run into this issue a lot where people are like, oh man, should I tell people that I'm like that I stream in English and Spanish, or should I like focus on just the English side because like English is my first language? And I'm like, or like second language. I'm like, no, please tell me that. Like as a person who is giving out keys,
please,
I want a diverse group of people who reach different audiences. And so like, don't be afraid to say, hey, I actually also like speak Spanish, and I can like, and I have people in my audience who like do that. Like that reach helps me a lot. And also I think it helps people just feel like more like they can kind of be themselves, which is really cool too. So yeah, but the like emails that are, and clearly Google translated, like I'm gonna do my best, but also like I understand that.
That's exactly what
I don't mind Google translated emails. That's fine. My problem is when it's like just like this giant like 3-page document in one paragraph.
I'm
like,
not sure how helpful it is in an English like panel to say, but if you have to Google Translate and you tell me that, right? If you're like, hey, sorry, I don't speak English generally, this is Google translated, I will immediately forgive all of, like, if it seems weird or whatever, I want you to have my game. Like, we have a lot of Korean fans, and I understand. Like, it's okay. Just get me the info, please. I want you, please. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to reach those different audiences, and like part of the pitch for you should definitely be like including that, or not being afraid of that, I guess. Like that is a valuable thing, and like you should totally own that.
don't work with anyone who doesn't want that. Like,
Yeah.
run.
Yeah.
I want to add like to the keys, and like saying which language you speak or where you're from is important for certain platforms because there are regional keys. But also if you have a game where localization hasn't hit certain platforms, then it's important because we want to give you the key, but say you want an Xbox key, but your language is only localized currently on Steam, then it's like, I want to give you the key, but I would feel like a butthead if I sent you an Xbox key knowing it was only in English. Like, you know, I've had a couple of people who are like, oh, this game is on Xbox Game Pass, that's how I'm playing it. However, right now, it's not my language. Can I please get a Steam key? And I'm like, yes, absolutely, because I want you to be able to share this, you know, with your community. And knowing which language you speak is incredibly important.
Cool. I think, oh, my mic got turned down. Looks like we have like about 5 minutes. I know everybody has to go on to their other virtual duties. Was there any clothing like thoughts we wanted? I think we got a lot of it, but again, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. I know this year is a weird one for panels. It's going to be an interesting PAX. I mean, we're recording this, you know, a decent amount ahead of time to accommodate for it. So hopefully
Check your contact form.
Yep.
We're gonna go back to it. Just respond to our
Mhm.
messages.
Yeah, that's a good
Something I
one.
did want to touch on that Victoria had written down in her points. Sorry, Victoria. It's just very important to me in
do
this
it.
moment. When you finish an activation, or if we give you a key, sending your stats back to us.
Mm.
Like I had a streamer last night send me a PDF with their VOD links, some clips they had, how their community reacted, stats from that stream.
So
Like
amazing.
certain,
This is huge. Yeah.
a lot of analytic programs can't even pull certain stats from Twitch. So like, or other platforms, really other platforms, it's a struggle. So send those back to us because we'd love to see them. I love to give them to developers. The developers love to see them. So it's like,
Yeah.
and you make my life.
I will highlight people who send me back stats. I'm like, I love this person.
I
Puts a little highlight on them.
I sent her a DM and I was like, can I please use you as example? I will take your name out or not. Like if you want credit for this. And she was like, yes, like do this. I'm okay with it. And I'm like, I'm just singing you from the mountaintops right now. Like,
Yeah, I agree with that. Having a post analytic doc is like like it's super helpful for everybody, especially when it's like not the stats that we can get. Like we can obviously get your average views. We can look at how many video views you got. It's like the demographics within that are like really stuff that we can't always get on certain platforms or they want us to pay for.
And if you're not sure, just send a screenshot. You don't have to send me a report that you wrote in science class. Like you don't have to do that. Screenshot works too.
Nice. Does anybody else have any parting thoughts, Joe, Victoria?
No,
you
I
got any?
think, yeah, that was a huge one for me that, like I it's so valuable and just like makes my life, it goes to that earlier point of just making my life easier. Like if you just bring me your content, I am more likely to share it or show it to the team or, you know, like gather feedback on it. And that's just like super helpful. So yeah, I'm
Awesome.
super into that.
Cool. All right. Did we do it? I think we did it.
We did
did
it.
it.
All right. Oh, cool. Thanks, everybody.
Virtual convention.
Thank you,
I guess this is how we
everyone.
sign off, right? Do we all walk out of frame or just end it?
Yeah, I don't know, I feel like, is there a way for us to ask for questions from people afterward?
I think we
don't
can
know.
answer. We can be in the chat.
Yeah, I was
when-
gonna say
Okay.
it'd be
Yeah.
cool to. We'll try our showtime is a pretty normal one. It'll be in the later in the day on a weekday, so it'll be pretty easy to pop in. So I'll at least try, and I'll let everybody on the panel know. So we'll try and hop into the stream chat.
Hopefully we've answered your questions in
Yeah.
the chat.
Yes.
We'll,
Right, of
we'll
course.
steer, get to this location.
You could like tweet
And afterwards
us.
you can always tweet it. Yeah, I was just gonna
Yes,
say.
Yeah.
I think they'll put up our handles on the
Yeah.
actual.
They should, and I'll try and edit it in. But all right, cool. Well,
Perfect.
thanks
Thank
everybody.
you, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.